right, you know what time it is? It's time for the show, the Dad Next Door show. I'm your host, Jason Centeno, aka the Dad Next Door. And yes, this is not a drill. You are seeing me on a Tuesday night because we changed from Thursday nights, but that's okay because it'll still be the same energy as every week. I got a great guest coming up right now. I've been a fan of his for years. He's a disruptor. And you know, I love disruption more than anybody. You've seen my memes, you've seen my jokes, you see how I live. So yeah, I'm excited to hear from this guy. You will hear from him shortly, but right now, you know what to do. You're going to watch this next 30 seconds and enjoy my kids calling me a hero. That's right. Get ready. Be right back.
Fatherhood. It's how we keep our tribes and families strong. You've landed in the right place if you're ready for dad jokes, tips, and tricks on fun parenting. Also with interviews with some of the coolest dad entrepreneurs we could track down and have them share their strategies to tackling it all in business and life on the Dad Next Door. And now, your host, Mr. Dad Jokes himself, Jason Centeno.
Say hi, Nana. You ain't shy. They don't show you it in action because things like this. Oh, fix it. Fix it.
I love Daddy. He's a superhero. I don't know what are you heroes. I know.
And that is the favorite part of every show that I have. So, Jay, from one Jay to another, how you doing?
Fantastic. Thanks for having me, Jason.
So you guys, I know, you know, he's not your typical rock star influencer, but this guy is actually the godfather. Let me ask you something. Did they make up the word disruptor after like what you did? Because basically like you're the originator from, you know, maybe there's somebody else before you, but like if you own that hashtag, it would be, you know, it would be yours. Did anybody come before you disrupting you, disrupting us, disrupting industries? Is like that your like main, you know, kind of characteristic, disruption?
I think that label was put on me. I think the most fun was when Wired magazine wrote an article that I had the most fun, the coolest job in the industry, was what they said. I just refused to grow up and just figured out how to have a lot of fun and make, change the world.
Change the world you have. I mean, you were like the guy doing CDs and digital music before anybody. You're the guy who, I mean, you've done pretty much everything before everybody else, way ahead. Like, did you get like a time machine? Is there a deal with the devil we don't know about? What kind of ball are you working with?
Here's the reason. Well, first of all, the best way to predict the future is hang out with the people that are coding it. Okay, so it's not that I have a crystal ball. It's Google's a client and Microsoft's a client, and going way back, working with Steve Jobs and Bill Gates and all these people before they were household names. But what I realized real early on, the second you go apply for a job somewhere, that means somebody else has had that job. So somebody has more experience, or tons of people. You're not going to win. So on any given day, there's somebody smarter than me, better connected than me, better looking than me. It's just, I hate the dude. So I always figured out if I find a void, if I find something no one's doing, if I'm the only one in the world doing it, by definition, I'm the best in the world. Then all you have to do is hold on to that piece as long as you can until everybody else crowds in. And we live in an era of endless innovation. So I now teach people, and future-proofing you, how to find those voids and how to, monetize it and get successful.
I'm holding up this book, guys, because as you can see, I mean, I beat it up and I'm still beating it up because there's a ton of ideas in there. Future-proofing you is pretty much the recipe on how to not go obsolete like tomorrow, because that's pretty much how fast it happens these days. And Jay goes deep into some things, and I really like how you put together the book, because you took this kid, Vin Clancy, from basically, I don't know what you would call him. I don't want to say a clown because I don't know him, but like this guy from England came here with nothing, had a lot of heart, and you made a deal with them. The story's great. I don't want to go too deep in it. I actually want people to just buy your book and get into the story, because you do a great job in it. Go ahead.
I wrote "Disrupt You" to pay it forward, to teach people how to have success. I teach how to build a startup at the university level. I've had students do $100 million. I mean, it's teachable. For some reason, our school systems still teach how to be a factory worker, and there's no more factories. So that's why we have so many people suffering right now. And so how could I show people that anyone could do it? So I took a young man who grew up on welfare, was an immigrant, had no social safety net, and I mentored him one day a week for a year. I gave him no cash. I didn't introduce him to any business contacts, and he had to start a business that took $0. And spoiler alert, if you're going to read the book, becomes a self-made millionaire in 11 months. Then I distilled that coaching, that mentoring down to 12 truths. And if you follow these truths, you will be successful. This isn't a get-rich-quick scheme. I'm not trying to sell anything here. But Vin was willing to work harder for 1 year than most people will in order to live the rest of his life in a way most people can't. And the reason it's future-proof is after that year, he could take a year off. He worked hard. Not that you can live the rest of your life off $1 million, but he knows whenever he wants to start up again, he has the skills, and the skills that will work throughout his life, regardless of how much society changes.
Is Vin a unique case study because we live in an age of everybody, like say Silicon Valley, it's like fundraise and everything's kind of done differently and done off of like, VC funding and all this stuff where they make products that never make money, but they still sell them. Like, is he unique in that he came here just kind of like an open book versus maybe somebody who was from America that just is used to things being in a different way, kind of in love with the social media aspect of showing off and not really doing anything of substance? You got the guys who did WeWork that just sold a bunch of wolf tickets for everybody and then that thing collapsed. Like, is he unique, or do you find a lot, like not a lot of that anymore in today's kind of society?
So I think, millennials get a bad rap. I think there's always the stereotype of whatever. But as an immigrant, he already differentiated himself from the pack because he was obviously seeking something better in life. That's why 1/3 of Fortune 500 companies were founded by immigrants or the first generation children of immigrants. Because when you see an immigrant working in a convenience store, sweeping the street, whatever it may be, that's not their identity. They recognize that is a step on a path and a journey that they take. So he was on a journey. All that I did was trick him into having a growth mindset very quickly, and then steer him and guide him to make the journey easier. And there's nothing in the book that's rocket science. There's nothing like, oh my God, I didn't, how can someone do that? It's just, we're not shown it. And if you would have told me growing up in Philadelphia in a row house that dozens of friends would become self-made billionaires, I'd like, what are you smoking? I didn't know what a millionaire was in Philadelphia. I didn't know what anything was. I still remember my parents pointing out some guy, that guy's rich, he owns a parking lot. And I look at a parking lot and there's nothing in it but ground. And I'm like, how is that rich? Like, it's just a parking lot. But when you see these people become household words, when you work with people like Spielberg and Branson and Elon Musk and everything, they're no different than you and I. There's only two things you need to be successful: insight and perseverance. In Future Proofing You, I teach you how to get the insight, how to find that idea to take to market. And then perseverance, if you can take that and cultivate it into passion, something that you're passionate about. You're passionate about adoption and children and helping the next generation. I started out like everybody else. I got out of school. I bought into society's promise that if you get good grades, you live happily ever after. And I got out in a recession. Well, wages have been stagnant in this country since 1982. Our factories now produce 3 times as much with 1/3 the number of people. Half of all jobs will disappear this decade. So what we've prepared people for isn't success. And not to get political, but when I watched what happened in our nation's capital in January, what I saw was thousands of people feeling left out, left behind, fighting over leftovers, when at the other half of it, there's a self-made billionaire every 48 hours. During the pandemic, there was a self-made billionaire every 26 hours. So what are they doing differently? Can it be taught? And you don't need any special skills. You can hire those. Steve Jobs created the first $1 trillion company. He couldn't write a line of code. He didn't have any money to hire Wozniak, who was probably arguably the foremost computer expert in the world at that time. So I show people how you do it, how to structure the deal, how to go through the steps, and the results are up to them.
How did you become an entrepreneur? What was your quick, when did you decide that you were like, this regular 9-to-5 crap is not for me?
So I didn't have a choice. I didn't set out to be an entrepreneur. I had 2 young sons. I was young and there were no jobs and I wanted them to have a better life. And that was all the passion and motivation I needed to never give up, never say no. When people told me no, it wasn't no, I can't do it. It's no, I can't do it with them. And you will make mistakes and fail, and you will fail forward. And so when I got out of college, there was a movie, Star Wars. And I go, oh my God, that would be the most fun career. I'll make special effects in Hollywood. I knew nobody in Hollywood. I wasn't from Hollywood. I didn't know how they made special effects, but it was as good as an idea as I could have. So what I needed is to figure out data. I needed to figure out how to get into that business. And so I took an ad out in the Hollywood Reporter that described the job that I wanted as if I was a studio offering it. And then I got in a bunch of resumes. Those resumes told me 2 things. 1, what does my resume need to look like? What do I need to learn and have and do? And 2, here's a bunch of people with 1 foot out the door. So all those companies are going to have an opening. The modern version of that is there was a young man who got a job at a big ad company. He wanted to be a madman. He wanted to do creative advertising, and he stuck down in the basement moving numbers around in a cubicle ready to shoot himself. And he looked and he realized nobody had bought the names of the top 5 creative directors in the industry on Google as AdWords. So for $9 or $10, he bought those keywords. And when they Googled themselves, as famous people do, and said, hey, I want to work for you, click here to see my portfolio. 3 of the 5 offered him jobs, and he, quadrupled his salary and accelerated his life.
So that those are definitely some hacks. I mean, nowadays they call stuff like that. Well, that's not growth hacking. That's a little different, but definitely some. But
the point of the story is we get caught up in making decisions on emotion. Anytime you can bring data into it, data won't steer you wrong. Data has no ego. There's always a way, and we're not talking about high-tech data. There was a guy who, the number 1 business that fails is a restaurant. So he wanted to figure out why do restaurants fail. And if you look into it, it's kind of a couple basic things. 1, too many items on the menu. Nobody orders the fish. There goes your profits. Number 2, turns out humans have this annoying habit of wanting to eat at the same time, lunch and dinner. So if you sit 2 people at a table for 4, you can't monetize those 2 chairs. So he said, okay, I'm going to open a restaurant that only has 3 items on the menu. And I'm only going to seat full tables. You'll wait at the bar and run up your bar tab. So you're going to have to sit with strangers. Okay, that's an insane concept. Now he has to come up with what kind of restaurant would work with that. And for the past 60 years, Benihana's has been killing it with that model. He didn't set up and say, I want to open a Japanese teppanyaki house. He said, I want to solve for why restaurants fail.
That's powerful. It's funny how you tell stories because we all kind of know these things, but then the reveal of like, oh yeah, that's what they did. You broke it, you kind of reverse engineer the story, and then it's like, oh yeah, that's simple. Now it's simple. The guy did it, but it's kind of like, why didn't you?
I find people learn through stories. I mean, another modern example is I had a client that wanted to take on Victoria's Secret. They had a better supply chain. They were not going to have retail stores. They could do it online, but they wanted a Hollywood celebrity. They wanted a woman to be the face of the company. So, who do you hire? The big names are super expensive, this or that. I said, data. What are you talking about? I said, well, without permission, we'll run a whole bunch of ads out there with different celebrities' pictures. Within 1,000 people seeing them, you'll see the click-through rates, and you'll know who it is. Because is it somebody with big boobs, small boobs, young, old, single, married, chaste, slutty? I mean, come up with a million attributes, but why not have the answer? So when we had the answer, we then went to the talent agent to find a talent, and they pitch us this name. Now we can't afford that. This name, blah, blah, blah. And by the time they got to our name, we go, okay, I guess what she want, and we got her for nothing because we knew the value. Fast forward, Netflix doesn't share how many people watch their shows because they don't want the creators of the shows charging them more money. So data is the secret to everything.
So, all right. So let's go back. Does entrepreneurship run in your family? Like, was this passed down through generations? Were you the first? Does the kids get into this at all?
So my dad was a Philadelphia public school teacher. Shout out to Lincoln High. And then he decided to open a mom and pop restaurant. And that's what he did his whole career. And so in that sense, yeah, he was an entrepreneur. But he never scaled beyond he's got to be in the building. You know, they figured out how to have two restaurants, mom at one, dad at the other, but they, couldn't get to the next scale. And you learn a lot dealing with the public. I spent a lot of years working in the restaurant as a kid. But no, I didn't set out to be this entrepreneur. I didn't have a choice. And so you keep on trying stuff. And once I discovered be the best at what you do or the only one doing it, everything accelerated. And then I got to be an entrepreneur. So I got to run giant corporations with 300,000 employees doing billions of dollars a year. So now I understood how those companies think. And that's what led me to write Disrupt You and Future Proofing You, because I've sat in the empty room and created things, like LinkedIn and the first auction that is eBay, et cetera, et cetera. But I've also sat in the boardroom of giant multinationals and see how dysfunctional they are and why it's so easy for you to compete with and beat a multi-billion-dollar company.
What is if you had one sort of golden rule about how to do that in a nutshell, how could someone say beat Google at some because you work with them?
So the simple thing is you got to realize that the big companies are just focused on their big competitors. They don't see you, the little pipsqueak, doing anything. The other thing is everybody thinks public CEOs make a boatload of money. Not true. They have modest salaries, but they have an incentive package. If they can move the stock, they literally back the big Brinks truck up to my house and just pour the money in. So now that I'm not a public CEO, I can tell you what no CEO will ever tell you. They don't think about the shareholders. They don't think about the customers. They don't think about their employees. They think about what the board's paying them to think about, that carrot, that they're going to get tens or hundreds of millions of dollars if the stock moves. So how do you make the stock move? Either you're really brilliant or you just cut spending. So they're not developing next year's product because they don't know if they'll still be CEO next year. They've cut out all the spending. So when some startup has what they should have been working on, they gladly overpay, which is why you're able to take companies with no revenue and sell them for hundreds of millions of dollars.
So got it. So yeah, because the development costs and everything they would have had to pay to do all that.
They would have spent years losing money, missing the numbers, and not getting that giant check. I was CEO of a little ad platform at the time when nobody's watching television ads anymore. And make a long story short, the company was ready to be closed. Investors had invested $8 million in it. They were down to 1 month's payroll, and they had 30,000 in lifetime sales of the company. 18 months later, News Corp bought that for $200 million. So you have to understand the game. You have to understand deal structure. And so I try to teach this because let's face it, the pandemic wiped out the middle class. And you cannot have democracy without a middle class. So unless we teach people how to be future-proof, how to really take control of their life, it doesn't end happily. And so if you're going to a job that just pays you enough to show up but not enough to care, if it's not letting you raise your family in the manner that they deserve, what's stopping you? If it's fear, I address that in the book. If it's, lack of knowledge, here's the truth. And I've done all the research. People with higher IQs don't end up wealthier. People that go to 4-year universities don't end up wealthier. pretty much the one attribute is persistence. Everything you own, wear, look at, every movie you've been to was created by a stubborn person. History books should be renamed The History of Stubborn People, because those are the only people that ever make change.
So one of the things in your book that was really eye-opening that I definitely got to do more research is the whole deal structure part. I imagine that's probably a lot of people would be scrambling for the right, I guess, lawyers and deal makers to help them on their journey.
Lawyers don't make deals. Lawyers paper your deal. It starts out real simple. So in the case of Vin, the young man, he wanted to do social media marketing for people. There's millions of people that already do it. And if you're a young kid on welfare, you're not suddenly going to get a phone call from Coca-Cola to do our social media marketing, right? So he just knows other broke people. So the first thing was fill that void. Just like I said, be the best at something. Well, find something that people are talking about. Instead of being this general, I do social media marketing, you're the best at doing social media for this one little area. And even if you have to get your first client for free, the second you have that client, you now have what's called a case study in MBA speak. And now you can go to everybody else in that field and show the results you're getting, and they'll pay you whatever. So what clients were paying Vin for $500 or $1,000 in his first month, the next client's paying him $30,000 a month for the same amount of work because he's a proven commodity. And once he gets enough clients that he can't take anymore, then he can, sky's the limit if he can deliver. And so that's what it really comes down to. And so if you're being a consultant for somebody and they want you to do marketing so they can sell 10 widgets, and you say, if I sell 20, will you give me a bonus of X? They'll go, sure. And if I sell 100, will you agree to keep me on for a year and give me, $1 million? And they'll go, sure, because they don't believe it's possible. So it's all how you structure the deal.
So with that, I mean, with him, did you coach? Okay. So he was brand new. Did you coach him through asking for those asks, or was
Sure.
Okay.
He didn't have that experience. But one of the things that he came up with on his own from the things is he got to a point where he just didn't have the bandwidth for the low ticket clients. So instead of saying, hey, I don't have it, time to take you on, he developed a bunch of people to farm the work to and getting a commission right off the top. So now he has multiple revenue streams without having to do multiple amounts of work.
Yeah, it's kind of a reverse, well, not a reverse affiliate marketing. It's, I guess, I don't know what you would call that, but yeah, getting a piece of the action. So let's talk some dad stuff. So I know you have two sons, and
Super proud of him.
As a busy dad with 6, it's funny because people that have ever been on Zooms with me have definitely seen them passing through Zooms and lots of sometimes crazy episodes of trying to communicate while doing them. But with you, you were building up these businesses, you were consulting, and of course you had to have some concentration. So tell us about the little game.
So back before anybody worked in their home, I wasn't going to spend the money on overhead. I ran my first companies out of my house for almost a decade till my kids went to school. So we played a game. If the phone rang, whoever stayed quiet the longest got a prize. And my kids were into it. I also thought it was important for them to understand what dad is doing and why he's not with them. So it wasn't this black box of dads go off and do something and you don't know. And I bring them in, and when we had an office, I'd have them come in and always work on something. Now, it's kind of cool. I was a dad when my kids were in elementary school. I was one of the largest makers of video games. I made, at one point, had 7 of the top 10 video games in the country. So they got to be part of that. When they were teenagers, I ran the world's music company. So, you got to go backstage and meet the things, and, and if it was meeting a president or, doing something, and, I'd take them out of school to do it with me. Fast forward, I believe kids are sponges, that if you just throw enough stuff and expose it to them, you don't know what's going to stick. Both of them went into entertainment. I used to be president of Universal and at Sony, and I didn't open doors. I didn't One's a movie writer. You could be anybody's kid and it doesn't help you. Either the script sells or it doesn't. And if you saw last year, Pokemon Detective Pikachu, second highest grossing movie, only the Avengers movie beat it. That was my Benji. It's 2 series on Disney right now. He's got a bunch of movies coming out. I'm in awe. And my other son is creating series and is exec with Disney. So they're both living their dream, doing what they like. And the secret is never ask a kid, what do you want to be when you grow up? Wrong question. What problem do you want to solve when you grow up? At every stage of life, kids can see things that are unjust, incomplete, need repair in the world. I tell the story in Future Proofing You. My best friend was lucky enough to get hit by a swing in elementary school and knock out all her teeth. I say lucky enough because she was miserable, I'm imagining. And when the dentist gave her all new teeth and put her smile on, she wanted to spend her life giving people back their smile. And she's a dental surgeon. So I never had that epiphany of here's my calling. I want to go, do something. I still don't. I just basically knew I wanted to make a difference wherever I could. And the first priority was taking care of, the family. The next priority is taking care of everybody else's family and the planet.
That's powerful stuff. So kids are in the industry kind of, well, you've touched on all those industries. You've been in music and you've been in art, and you're a great artist. So it's great to see that they're still doing something creative, obviously, because that's something both of them are doing. And you as a creative, like, I'm pretty sure you're proud of that. So that's pretty awesome. So, what does your daily routine look like right now? I mean, you don't have them with you, obviously. And I kind of, this show kind of try to dig into dad entrepreneurs' life. How do they balance? But like, you're a busy guy. I mean, you're on a lot of boards. Are you a CEO of anything right now? Or are you just kind of like you're consulting in a lot of places?
I'm exec chairman of a company that's solving a giant issue. So I didn't want to run another company. Been there, done that. But an engineer who had worked for me 20 years ago started a company called Greenfield Robotics. And the simple story is 100 years ago, somebody had this incredibly stupid idea that the best way to grow food is put a bunch of poison on it to kill all the bugs and all the weeds and all the small mammals and birds, but it would never affect us. And now with huge cancer rates, we're paying the price for that. And the weeds are getting resistant to all these things and the chemicals are out of control. So he had the idea, what if we make small little robots that go up and down row crops? Think of corn and soy and milo, and just cut out the weeds. Think of Roomba for a farm. So now the farmer's growing organic. He makes 40% more per acre. It's robots as a service. He doesn't have to buy them. And for less than the cost of the chemicals, they can make healthy food. Number 2, there's no chemicals running down the Mississippi, killing all the fish in the Gulf of Mexico. And the most important, not only is the poison out of our food, but because you don't have to till the soil and break up the weeds, the single largest source of carbon in our atmosphere heating up our planet is farming. It's not factories, it isn't cars. So if we can now stop that, that's 16% of all greenhouse gases. So this one little company can give us healthy food and a healthy planet. How could I morally obligated as a parent, as a grandfather, not do everything I can to make sure they're successful?
So this company, these was it Greenfield Robotics, right?
Robotics.
You got these little farm Roombas cutting the fields. Now, do the farmers, do they have to control these things, or these are rented out, so they don't even have equipment costs? They're just kind of rented out and serviced by.
They don't even have to rent it. It's a service. The Greenfield truck comes to the farm, and you got to realize you only have to de-weed a couple times a season.
Oh.
All the robots let themselves out the back. A drone maps their farm. They go up and down. They do their stuff. They go back on the truck and they go to the next farm. So the farmer doesn't have to learn how to do anything.
Damn.
And the response from farmers has been phenomenal because they make more money. They don't like handling these carcinogenic substances. The stuff dicamba is so bad that, I mean, you can read up on it. I don't want to get sued by the chemical companies that make the stuff, but You know, there's a reason why other countries won't allow us to sell food to them, because they've outlawed the poisons that we're ingesting and giving to our children.
Does there any part of that? I know that carbon credits are a big deal to corporations. Are you able to kind of like monitor that, prove it, and then maybe even sell those carbon credits back to some of these bigger corporations?
Were you spying on our last board meeting?
No, but I'm working on something similar. That's why I asked.
Yeah. Here's, as I ended the book, the last chapter in Future Proofing You, I talk about sustainable capitalism. So whether people like it or not, governments are going to have to come up with rules, or otherwise life ceases on the planet. It's kind of not about quarterly earnings anymore, but there's profitable ways to participate. And that is one area that will be a huge industry. And, you know, blockchain makes it easier to track and to deal with. And so, yes, it's something in the roadmap. But right now, you know, the first step is showing, you know, 1 acre at a time, the difference in impact that it can make to farms' bottom line and to getting healthier foods. And here's the other thing that people don't, and I didn't grow up knowing anything about farming. So my CEO's a 3rd or 4th generation Kansas farmer. The food that we get at the market looks the same as the food that our grandparents had, a tomato, a corn, or whatever it might be, but they're less nutrient dense because we have basically pulled every last nutrient out of our soil. So until you get into what's called regenerative ag, where you're not tilling the soil, where you're letting these things do it, you're not really getting the benefit of why mom told you to eat your vegetables. You're getting a thing that looks like it's good for you, but the goodness has been diluted out of it.
Yeah, I think people use the word organic way too liberally, because it's one of those things. But I mean, yeah, if you can definitely, if you could know the actual whole process of the farming, and track it even on the blockchain, maybe that's a thing now. You can track
and forget all that complex. As a little boy, I will tell you that the Jersey tomatoes my grandmother grew on her stoop in Philly, in Winfield, were still the best tasting tomatoes I've had in my life. You know, there was a time where we were all closer to our food. And that time's going to come back again because food prices are going to skyrocket. But you know, I digress. Dads can make a huge impact, not just by being examples, but by showing what you can do with your life in a way that impacts beyond the 4 walls of your home. And the more you do that, the more you're raising a next generation that will take the mission further.
I was about to ask you what's your best piece of life advice to other dad entrepreneurs, but you just answered it. So you took my glory there. But now I got plenty more questions for you. So I got one that's probably gonna throw you off a little. So what's one weird thing most people don't know about you?
What's one weird thing? I paid my way through college as a professional magician. I'm a member of the Magic Castle in Hollywood.
Oh, that's right.
When I was a little boy in Philadelphia, I saw a magician and I saw the effect he had over people. That, you know, he could get you to suspend reality. And actuality, that's kind of how I've made my career. I don't live in reality. I know what's coming next, and I can make that happen. So, and then you touched on my painting. I never let people know that I was a painter. But in the pandemic, I believe that a growth mindset is key to success. It's the first truth in the book. So how could I show people during this horrible time something positive? Now, obviously, if you got afflicted or people died, it was a horrible, horrible thing. But if you didn't, it was a gift of time. You know, January before the pandemic, I was in 4 continents, 12 countries. I've been living that lifestyle for decades, always on the plane. So now I would be home, and I thought we'd handle it better, and maybe I'd be home a month or 2. I didn't know it would be, you know, a year. So I committed that I would paint a painting a day of what I was feeling, what was going on, and share that. And I did it just to show people what you could do with focusing your time. What I didn't expect to happen was to hear from galleries and to hear from art collectors and suddenly have a solo show in New York and get commissions. And I'm just amazed people like my art.
So are you going to NFT them joints or what?
I'm about to announce an NFT that I'm doing. I'm taking a different approach to it, but one that's has more thought to it.
I'm interested in hearing about that because the world is wide open, but a lot of people are just making like junk, and I don't understand it. But I've seen and heard, I guess, explained a whole lot of cool things that people can do with them, and embedding codes and
most of what's out there is just junk is a kind word, but since I'm not planning to start another business, I'll tell you somebody will do this because this is the best example that I could come up with right now. You ever been to a rock concert?
Yes.
You ever buy a t-shirt?
Trying to think. I've probably bought swag. Yeah, I've bought swag. I don't know if it's a t-shirt.
So why did you buy it? You bought it to show that you were there, right?
Correct.
So now imagine that you're going to a Springsteen concert, and when you buy the t-shirt, you get an NFT with it. Now, each concert you go to, you're getting another NFT. So now, when Springsteen goes on tour, you can say anybody that has 50 NFTs can come backstage to the meet or greet. You're there with your wife. She's a huge Springsteen fan, and you got 49 of those suckers. You're going to be on your phone right there with who in the crowd will sell you one of theirs so you can go meet the boss. So it's a way of expressing fandom. It's ways of showing who's been somewhere, who's been the most. Now you can see a value to a virtual good to allow you access, to allow you status. And you will now see in all aspects of sports fandom and everything else, NFTs being used as a way to do that.
Yeah, I mean, the stuff I've heard was like if you had a collection of, a guy made 60 pieces, he would plant a piece of code or a piece of a message in all 60 pieces. And then when they're all bought, then all the people can come together and assemble those pieces together. And that NFT would give them like a special message or code or something special to just those 60 people, let's say. Or another one, and just the chain of evidence, like if someone famous bought a painting from me, and then it's like, okay, as that person's the art that passes along, you get to see all the cool and famous people that owned it along the way, sort of like an antique and stuff like that. So there's definitely a ton of uses for it, and I can't wait.
On art, French law about art is different than copyright in this country, and so NFT allows you to do something that the French want to have happen, but now you can do it, which means if somebody buys a painting of mine and they then sell it for a bunch of money, if it has an NFT attached to it, every time it trades hands, I get 10% forever. So the artist can continue to make money from their art. It shouldn't be that some, scalper mentality goes and buys everything and that artist suddenly dies and now they make a ton of money. It should be that, there's some revenue stream back to the creators of art.
Yeah, there's definitely, it's a wide open world. I'm interested to see which way it goes, but your idea is definitely cool. I'll tell you what's one question that you're like, you do a lot of interviews. What's one question you're tired of people asking you?
What am I tired of people? I really just appreciate people asking. I really don't have one off the top of my head. I mean,
it's okay. You don't have to. I mean, it's great that nothing but, you have an even temperament. I can imagine that some people might get one thing that when I ask that question, it depends who gets it, because there's people that might have a certain level of fame. And it's like, people are always asking me this one thing. And it's like, the next question I follow up with is usually, all right, so what's one question that you wish people would ask you, but they never seem to ask you?
I've been pretty transparent, and authentic out there. When I made the decision to give up my privacy to help people, I live as an open book. So there's nothing that people haven't asked me or this or that. No, can't. I wish I had a good canned answer for you. Really can't think of anything.
You're disrupting.
I guess what's one of the things that you really tried to make happen that didn't happen. What are some of the, not the financial failures, but the big ideas that you just couldn't make happen. That's probably a more interesting topic to me.
Are there a lot of them, or just like one that? I mean, okay. So what's your hit ratio? Because I think Mark Cuban said it best. Was like, if I got a 20% kind of success rate, I'm still doing good. Like, what's your kind of I don't know, your standard of like success?
So I hired Mark back before he had a dime.
Didn't know that.
Ambitious guy. Yeah, I built the first social network 10 years before Facebook that hit 1 million members. And he did it was called Animal House. It was for college kids to find the unofficial stuff about. We got 1 million college kids to join. And he ran the sports. So you could listen to college sports anywhere in the country. Back then, you could only, if you lived in Philly, you could hear, about Temple. But if you lived in somewhere else, you couldn't. So that was the genesis of what he sold to Yahoo and how he made his first billion. If I have a 1% hit rate on ideas, that would probably be high. I mean, I am constantly coming up with new things, whatever, and then you take them to a certain stage. I mean, once capital's committed, my hit rate's, nearly 100%. But in the early stages, there's some things that you just can't. I came up with a solution to bring back Detroit and dead cities, and I sat down with the president to solve this, and I just couldn't convince the powers that be, that I was right, and it would change our nation instantly and make the most adverse places in the country the most sought after places to live.
How long ago was that kind of got dumped?
That was about 8 years ago. So the concept was this: your big giant companies have a shortage of engineering talent. So they'll either hire a bunch of engineers overseas to do it, or they try to get visas so they can bring engineers to work here. And we've limited that for some strange reason because they're not taking anyone's jobs. There's a shortage. So instead of stopping those jobs from coming here and having, I've run engineering teams all over the world because I can't bring the people here. Why not tie those visas to empowerment zone zip codes? So Microsoft, you can bring in 2,000 engineers from overseas, but they have to live in Detroit, in downtown Detroit, or whatever you do. You already have the plumbing, you already have the buildings, you already have the infrastructure. Your locals can now have thriving restaurants and clothing stores and everything that you need. And so you can bring back these urban areas that have the infrastructure by targeting that you can have these workers if you bring them into those zones.
Sounds like
no one loses.
Sounds like what the Zappos guys did in Las Vegas, or almost, pretty much accomplished version of that. Seems like.
Yeah.
It wasn't engineered, but it could work.
Yeah. So, it seemed like the easiest way to solve a whole bunch of systemic issues.
Oh, yeah. But, politics and governments and bureaucracies and other people's interests, of course. But we're not here to worry about that. So you're top big brain guy. Like, are you in any masterminds of any kind, or is it just boards you're on, stuff like that? Like, who do you converse with and regularly sup with or talk to that's helping you grow, I guess?
So as I said, the best way to predict the future is hang out with the people that are coding it. I don't, first of all, I don't do masterminds. I don't do teaching. I'm not doing anything to try to monetize this. I have free workbooks on my website, jsamit.com, so people can get the most out of this. The only reason I'm book cautious about the price of, a Happy Meal is because I work with publishers so that they can do distribution. But yeah, I don't go to that. my Facebook feed and my Twitter feed doesn't show, or Instagram, what people ate and pictures of, hamsters eating tacos. There's a group of people that want to show off when they come across the most interesting article in some obscure journal or some piece of knowledge that the community doesn't have. And you just go down that rabbit hole of learning. I mean, I learn so much from the people around me every day. And so that's what I find stimulating.
The people around you in Greenfield, or just like in your house, or like where you rub shoulders? Because you live in California, and
online. I mean, we're all in the same community. We're all connected. So yeah, there was not a whole lot of difference between me and my peer group of friends, pandemic and post-pandemic. I mean, you're seeing people occasionally when you bump into them somewhere around the world, but most of the time it's what we're doing right here. So, up your game. Surround yourself with people that are challenging the system, that are making a difference, that are trying to solve problems, because it'll rub off on you.
Exactly. So about the book, I know you wanted to offer something regarding the book. So, guys, if you're watching this, definitely a book worth having in your library and beaten up like this. But you said you had, I guess you said some downloads you'd like to offer people?
Yeah. So on both the books, double plug. On both the books, you're reading, you get a dense lot of information that helps you go, yeah. And then you get to the next chapter, and what you read the last chapter tends to go out 1 year. So I wrote workbooks that one's 32 and one's 40 pages. They're free. That you can, after each chapter, you can do exercises to start mapping your future, to start making a plan. If you don't know where you want to be in 5 years, how do you expect to get there? Right? And it's just one step at a time. And I show you the steps to success. You have to do the work. And there's no shortcut, so to speak, but you can avoid a lot of the pitfalls and pain and mistakes that most people have made. So why would you make the same mistakes? And why not, give yourself a boost? And it's not like going to 4-year college where you're going to graduate with a mortgage but no house. It's literally tried and true stuff that's worked for thousands of people. So the workbooks are at jsamit.com, which is up there. And you just click on the link and I'd love to see what people do with the information. And I've heard from thousands of people, and that's what pushes me to work harder to try to make a difference with the time I have left.
I think one of the greatest parts of the book is, and it's probably the hardest too, and it has to do with mindset, but more importantly, problem solving, is the exercise, the 30-day problem solving challenge, because, because you need the right mindset. We live in a society where everybody's complaining about everything that's wrong, but they don't offer solutions. And I hate that. I hate anybody coming to me talking about this is a problem. It's like, well, if you don't know how to solve it, shut up or give me something that can, or an idea. Otherwise, stop complaining until you do, because it's just negative energy. It doesn't help anybody. But like that shift right there of just looking for problems.
So the biggest change is, if anybody's listening to this conversation and you have problems in your life, you're halfway there. Because entrepreneurs don't sell things, they solve things. You solve for 5 people, you have friends. Solve for 1 million, you're rich. You solve for 1 billion, you change history. So odds are the problems you have, other people have the same ones. And you don't have to invent the flux capacitor. You just have to take something that's being used over here to solve this problem over there, and all the riches flow to you. And so teaching people to see that way, to get out of the blinders that they go through. We go through so much of our life on an auto mode that we don't think, that we're missing those opportunities. So think of obstacles as opportunities in disguise, and suddenly your world is ripe with possibilities. I mean, my favorite example for a parent, it happened to be a mom, not a dad, in future-proofing you, is it's a school night, middle of the week. Your child has to make some poster board thing to show tomorrow at school. It's 10 o'clock at night, and they mess it up, and they're crying, mommy, please buy me another poster board. Please go to the store, please. So the mom goes to the store, and she gets it, but she doesn't want to do this twice. So before she gives the poster board to her daughter, she makes little fine lines on it so the daughter can write on it straight. The next morning, she's talking to her sister, goes, why don't they sell this? Make a long story short, they get themselves a patent for that, putting lines on a piece of poster board, license it to the biggest poster board company, and they made about $5 million. No employees, no capital to raise, no factories.
But then they get robbed at first, and then
that's why I didn't want to go through the whole story of what it takes. But
no, they need to, because that's really like that's the most interesting wrinkle in that, because people are always like, I want to protect my idea, but like
so they had the patent. The first guy went and tried to rip them off, so they went to his competitor, and the competitor says, okay, if we sue them and we win, can we work with you? And they go, sure. I mean, there's another woman who's now become famous to people, that she worked at this conservative sales company in Florida, where she had to wear pantyhose, and it's hot and it's sweaty, and you want to wear sandals and you can't wear pantyhose. So she finally figures out a way to do something different with pantyhose, and she goes to all the makers of the stuff, and they laugh at her idea. One guy literally ripped up her card. She didn't have money for lawyers. She didn't have money for anything. She went to Barnes & Noble and bought patents for dummies. You can't make this stuff up. Filed her own patent. And Sarah Blakely and Spanx has been a multi-billion-dollar company. She's a multi-billionaire off of just that one insight. So insight and perseverance, folks. Everything else can be hired. And if you hear me talking a lot about technology, you're in a tech business. I don't care what your business is, because we're all interconnected. That's where you find information. That's where your customers are going to find you.
So this is a question I sort of ask everybody, and you certainly are going to do this in some capacity, but how do you want to leave your mark in the world? What do you want your legacy to be to people to remember you by? Your work, your personality, your children? Like, what's that look like in your head for you to be happy and say, I did that? If you happen to attend your own funeral and hear your own eulogy, like, what would you want people to say?
He looked amazingly good for 140.
Nice.
I don't care if I'm remembered. What's more important to me is, am I doing the most with the time I've been given? I don't believe in reincarnation. I don't believe in afterlife. I believe I got one shot. And so I'm trying to live up to my potential. And that's, my kids are biologically and actually the legacy, and my grandkids after that. And so, the world is incomplete. The world's unjust. The world has problems. Did I do something to make it better with the time I had here? And that's how I judge that. I don't want to have regrets. And for those people that are sitting here afraid to try, afraid to fail, afraid of embarrassment, afraid of losing money, afraid of losing social status, losing other people's money, go talk to your grandparents, go to an old age home and ask seniors what their biggest regret in life is. And not one will mention something they failed at. They'll all mention something they failed to do, something they failed to try. Don't live a life of regrets. Go out there and try, because when you do something, even if you fail, you don't end up where you started. You either earn or you learn, and you will continue to learn, and you will fail your way forward. I mean, that's how Jeff Bezos could lose money year after year after year with Amazon and come out the other side of it as the richest man in history. It's about taking those chances, because the learning happens when you're doing something that others aren't willing to do. And your initial idea may be a horrible idea, but as you get deeper into the woods, you will discover the treasure. And that's where your fortune lies.
What about if there was a magic trick named after you? Would that be a good one?
Yeah, I mean,
surprise or something.
When I was young, I sold a trick to Doug Henning, and I thought that was like the greatest moment of my life up until then. To invent something in that space. But yeah, I guess on the fantasy list, my bucket list, I did at 50. I wrote a bucket list and 100 things I wanted to accomplish in life, and I'm down to less than 5 or 6 on the list. So I feel blessed. I got to make a new list and add more challenges. But now my fantasy would be, I'd love to have one of my paintings in a major museum. To me, that would just be just an amazing thing.
Well, here's a little hack for that. You could always just carry it in, put it on the wall temporarily, and still accomplish that. Might not be the same, but technically it is.
An easier hack is have any of the friends that endow these museums with millions of dollars say, you got to buy this, put this guy's painting. But no, I want it on the merit of the painting, not on, not on the other way to do it.
I'm just trying to help, man.
I appreciate it, brother.
All right, so you know what time it is. I told you, and you said you were ready. Let's hear some dad jokes, because
this is my all-time favorite corny dad joke. What do you get when you throw a piano down a mine shaft? A flat minor.
Okay, that is definitely old school. You got some.
You want some current ones?
Yeah, let's go. I mean, you're a disruptor. Let's get some crypto jokes, some tech jokes.
How do you weigh millennials?
I don't know.
In Instagrams.
That's a good one. I like that.
What else I got? Did you hear about the kidnapping in school? It's okay. He woke up.
You got a routine. Let's keep going.
Hey, when I was in college, I did try making it as a stand-up. But there was this other guy who could be stoned out of his mind and get on stage and just kill night after night. So I always told my friends I gave up stand-up comedy because I couldn't be Robin Williams. Robin
was that really him? I mean, he was.
Yeah. It was just like talent from another planet. It was a unique gift.
Only another kind of dude, that's for sure.
Let's see. Those were. I'll close with it's a Stephen Wright line, but it's genius. It really bugs me that there's only one company that's allowed to sell Monopoly.
That's got to kill in the board meetings.
So did I pass the dad joke?
You passed, of course you did. So that's the thing about dad jokes. Look, they're puns and they're told between dads, but like there's age levels. I mean, some are like goofy and like, hey, why did the guy take an extra pair of socks? Here you go. Why should you take an extra pair of socks when you go play golf?
Why?
In case you get a hole
in one.
Stuff like that. So it just depends on your audience. I mean, you just got to have some in the chamber, and for some older people, like, some of these other ones. And then for the younger kids, like, the kids like what's brown and sticky. And it's like, what? And I say a stick. And then they're like, so, there's just the level.
I tried to teach my granddaughter this one. What's blue and smells like red paint?
Blue paint.
Blue paint.
Here's a Philly joke. I used to say at the real estate meetings. What's red and bad for your teeth?
What?
A brick. And from Philly, that would go over well. And it has levels, so it depends on your.
That's a South Philly joke.
Yep. Well, listen, you were great. I'm honored that you were my guest today. I'm a fan, and I got your books, and I would suggest to any entrepreneur watching this anywhere that you should pick this up, because it's definitely going to have you thinking on different levels, especially if you start doing that problem solving exercise. Like I said, because I'm in the middle of solving some problems, I'm using this as my my index to go back to here and there when I run into something. So I thank you very much for giving this gift to the world. And, thank you very much. And I hope that we get to talk again real soon.
Thanks for sharing your audience with me, and everybody, thanks for spending the time with us.
All right. Thank you. So guys, that is the end of the show. But as always, I like to leave you with a little something. So since today we were talking about tech a little bit, one of the things I wanted to offer, if you guys are out there, if you have some young people in your life that are budding entrepreneurs, even high school kids or college kids that are looking for a big opportunity, then they can text the word YEM to 305-602-3632. and you'll be able to take advantage of that opportunity. So let me make sure I got that. There you go. In case you need that number again, it's 305-602-3632. Text the word YEM, and you will get a link to something that would possibly change your lives. And I hope that you get to take advantage of that in some way, somehow. So guys, I think that's it for tonight. It's a wrap. So for all you dads, entrepreneurs, and other sexy people up in here, if you like what you heard, then don't forget 9 p.m. next week to tune in and turn up with the dad next door. Take care, comb your hair, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care, guys.